David Aldridge, who joins us from Portland. David, are you there?
I am.
All right, sir. So, do you think that the ball got rolling on this, I mean, right around the time of last February when the whole arena deal and the Kings and people raising their hands with Mayor Johnson in Sacramento, all that stuff, all that triumph came apart? Did this then go in motion, or was it before that?
Well, look, Chris Hansen's been working on this for 3 years now. He's been working on getting the arena deal in Seattle financed, almost all privately. There were a lot of hurdles to get that done, that part of it done. But he's been working very meticulously, and that's the way the NBA likes it, is when a guy does it very meticulously and doesn't make a lot of noise about it. But in terms of buying up the property downtown in the area of Seattle near Safeco Field where the Mariners play and where the Seahawks play, getting the people in the city council and the mayor's office to sign off on his arena plan, and they have. That was a huge hurdle, but it's all had the same caveat. Until you buy a team, we're not putting a shovel in the ground. And so that's where the city of Seattle left it with Chris Hansen and his group. And so now they're in the process, and they've been doing this for, again, I think for the better part of a year now. I think the Maloof family, and George Maloof has been leading this, by the way, the last year or so, has been looking at a number of different scenarios. Obviously, they preferred Anaheim. That was their original intent, was to go to Anaheim and play in the pond. The Samueli family, which owns the Anaheim Ducks, had committed to making the necessary improvements to that arena to bring it up to NBA specifications. But there were a lot of owners that were not excited about putting a third team in the L.A. market, even though Anaheim, we know, is technically several miles away. They view it as part of the L.A. market. So that was a problem. They were talking to Virginia Beach, but that's only if the state of Virginia came up with public financing, which went away a couple of months ago. And so it always came back to there's only really one place that makes any sense, and that's Seattle. And that's why I think that the talks have been ongoing for months. I think as the other various scenarios kind of came and went, I think they realized that the only way that the Maloofs can kind of make themselves whole financially and get out of some of the debt that they have is to sell the team to Chris Hansen, because Chris Hansen's got several $1 billion to play around with, and he's got a partner in Steve Ballmer that's got more than $10 billion to play around with. So they've got all the money that you would ever need to buy an NBA team and to finance most of a new arena in downtown Seattle.
What kind of a pushback, DA, do you think we will get now from Seattle and from Sacramento, rather, and Kevin Johnson? And frankly, what can they do if this is a deal between the Maloofs and the city of Seattle?
Yeah, I don't know that there's much that they can do. I mean, obviously, I think people keep hoping that Ron Burkle, who's a billionaire that lives, has expressed some interest in buying the team, can step forward. I can tell you, the Maloofs are not going to sell the team to Ron Burkle, and I'm not guessing on that one. I've got pretty close that have told me that. So I think that if there are other people with that kind of money in the Sacramento area who will pledge to keep the team in Sacramento, then they should step forward, because it's getting late. And as Scott mentioned, March 1st is the date. You've got to apply for relocation by March 1st. And once that is set in place, I don't see right now anything that would stop that team from moving. Once they apply for relocation, I'm fairly certain that the other owners would very quickly approve the finance, assuming the financing is in place, that they would approve that, and that the Board of Governors would soon approve it in time for them to move next season, and they play in Key Arena for 2 years.
DA, first of all, Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Yes, sir. You too, G.
Hey, what could possibly, because we thought we were, in essence, in this position a few times before, right, with the Maloofs and the Kings, whether they were going to stay or be sold. What are the plausible scenarios that would have this deal fall through?
Well, there's only a couple that I can think of, Greg. The first one would be if for some reason the city of Seattle had second thoughts about the current way that the arena deal is being structured and being financed. And again, the Hansen Group is paying most of the freight, but the city of Seattle is paying some. And there have been some groups in Seattle that want some environmental studies done. The Mariners have been against this. The baseball team, they do not want another tenant down there in that area of town. The Seahawks, on the other hand, and the Sounders, the soccer team, are very much for it and have been on board with the Hansen Group for a while. So it's conceivable that maybe somebody could create a problem there. But the difference between now and a few years ago is that because this is so privately financed, they don't have to go to the state of Washington for funding. The problem they had before was that the deal that Clay Bennett was talking about potentially involved the state of Washington having to get involved in putting in a lot of state funds, and that was something that didn't fly. The difference this time is that this Hansen Group is financing almost all of it, not all of it, but almost all of it, and certainly enough so that the commitment that the city of Seattle has to make is much smaller than it was the last time. And Greg, it's always possible with the Maloof family. They are passionate NBA people. They have been since their father owned the Houston Rockets back in the 80s. They love the NBA. They love being in the NBA. And so it's always possible that they could have a change of heart and say that they'll try to stick it out another year. But at some point, I think the finances become so untenable that there's just no other option. I just don't see any other way that they can take care of the debt that they have, that they still have in a lot of things, and ignore and walk away from this deal. I mean, again, is there a billionaire in Sacramento? Maybe, but if there was a billionaire in Sacramento, you would think that they would have made themselves known by now and wouldn't we wait until the 11th hour. And I can tell you this about the NBA. They don't like people coming in at the 11th hour. You know, they like people who kind of go through the process and cross all the T's and dot all the I's. And the NBA does not want another repeat of the disaster of last year where they thought they had a deal to keep the team in Sacramento and everybody was on board and there was much, joy and celebrating. And then 2 weeks later, the thing fell apart. They do not want that again.
Hey, DA, it's Michael Red. How are you doing, sir?
Michael, good to talk to you, man. I'm doing fine.
Yes, sir. From a fan's perspective, what is the buzz like in the Pacific Northwest right now? Are you hearing anything right now?
Well, I mean, look, the people, and this is one of the other things, Michael, that I think makes this a very serious thing is Hansen has done a remarkable job of kind of rekindling the passion for the NBA in Seattle. I don't think it's any secret that after the Sonics left, most of the city of Seattle was really angry with the NBA, really angry with David Stern, and really did not want to even talk about having another team come there. But this guy and his group over the last couple of years have really gotten people kind of excited again and on board. And again, I can't stress enough, having the city council and the mayor's office and everybody in the city government on board to the point where they've approved almost all of the things that need to be approved for a shovel-ready project was huge and really has kind of turned the tide. And so I think that there are a lot of people in Seattle that are very excited. I think cautious because they don't want to have their hearts broken again, but they see that there's a possibility that this could really happen. And I think that they're excited about it because, look, we all know that the city of Seattle was one of the great NBA cities for 40 years before the team moved, and the team was sold and then moved. And so from an NBA standpoint, Seattle is one of the better cities that we've had. And I think a lot of people still feel very passionately about the NBA in the city of Seattle, in large part, I think, because of what Chris Hansen has done in terms of selling this project to everybody in town, from the teachers to the guys on the board of trade and all that sort of thing. I mean, he's done a great job of selling this as a civic thing. And this is a guy who, again, as I was told today, ever since he was a kid, wanted to own the Seattle Supersonics. This is what he wanted to do since he was a kid, and he's doing his level best to make that happen.
Well, this would be a tremendous coup for the city of Seattle, a team that saw its basketball team move just 5 years ago, and then to bounce back and get the team and a new arena as well. So pretty remarkable stuff, but Shows you anything can happen in professional sports. David
Yeah,
Aldridge.
and it's
thank
not
you.
over yet. I mean, look, they're close. They're getting close, but there's still. I was just told an hour ago, look, this is a big, complicated deal. This is $1 billion deal if you throw in the price of the arena being built. There's a lot of people that could still keep this from happening, and a lot of things that could keep this from happening. But I'll tell you this, I do believe that this is something David Stern wants very badly. Remember, guys, he's leaving in a year, and he wants, I think this is the last major item on his plate. He understands how important Seattle was and is to the NBA,
Sure.
and I think he wanted very badly to figure out a way to get a team back to Seattle before his tenure ends. And it doesn't mean that he's unhappy with Sacramento. He likes Sacramento very much from everything I've heard publicly and privately. It's just that they just can't seem to get a deal done. They can't seem to get done what needs to be done to keep that team in town. And as Scott said, that's been going on for 10 years. They've been talking about arena deals for 10 years in Sacramento. And they've been talking about, people coming in on a parachute and buying the team and keeping it there. And it just never has materialized. And the Maloofs have never been willing to sell. So it's kind of a moot point. If they're not willing to sell, it doesn't matter who's there, right? So
That's true.
It does now appear that they're willing to sell, and it looks like the guy they're willing to sell to is Chris Hansen.